The imperial palace of Drakshir floated among the crimson clouds of Vareth Prime, a monument to the Dragonkind's thousand-year dominion over the spiral arm. Within its obsidian halls, panic had taken root like a fungal plague. Princess Alira, third daughter of Emperor Vexthur the Eternal, lay dying. Her scales, once the color of molten gold, had dulled to the pallor of ash. Her breath came in shallow gasps, each exhalation releasing wisps of smoke that spoke of a fire slowly extinguishing. The greatest physicians in the Empire had examined her scaled Drekthari healers whose knowledge spanned centuries. The crystalline lumens whose diagnostic beams could see through flesh and bone. Even the enigmatic void-touched whose nanite swarms could repair cellular damage at the molecular level. All had failed. 3 weeks, the lead physician, a silver-scaled elder named Keshrak, announced to the Emperor. Perhaps 4 if we increase the plasma infusions, but Your Majesty, we can find nothing wrong. Every scan shows her organs functioning. Her blood chemistry is normal. Her neural patterns are stable. Yet she wastes away as if consumed by an invisible fire. The Emperor's roar shook the palace walls, servants scattered. Guards trembled. But Alira continued to fade. It was on the 17th day of her mysterious illness that Tom entered her chambers. He was human, a species the Dragonkin had conquered 40 years prior during their expansion into Earth's solar system. Humans were considered primitive, soft-scaled creatures useful only for manual labor and simple tasks. Tom had been assigned to the palace's cleaning detail, one of thousands of human servants who scrubbed floors and emptied waste receptacles while their betters ruled the stars. He pushed his cleaning cart into Alira's room during the evening shift, when most of the medical staff had departed. The princess lay motionless on her massive cot, designed to accommodate her 3-meter frame and vestigial wings. Her breathing was barely perceptible. Tom had seen death before. He'd watched his own sister succumb to the lung plague during the occupation's early days, when human hospitals had been reorganized under Drakthari efficiency standards. He recognized the signs. He began his work quietly, sweeping the marble floors, emptying the waste bins, replacing the water in the ceremonial fountains. The Dragonkin believed that flowing water pleased the spirit. Tom believed it just made his job harder, but he'd learned not to question their customs. As he worked his way around the princess's cot, his nose wrinkled. There was a smell faint but distinct, cutting through the incense and medicinal herbs that filled the room. It was earthy, organic, familiar. Tom paused. The smell reminded him of his grandmother's basement back on Earth, before the invasion. The same damp, musty odor that had necessitated the installation of a dehumidifier and the removal of several boxes of water-damaged books. He looked at the princess, then at her cot. The massive frame sat low to the ground, with perhaps half a meter of clearance underneath, space enough for someone of Tom's build to squeeze beneath. No physician had looked there. Why would they? The cot was cleaned weekly. The palace maintained perfect environmental controls. The Dragonkin were meticulous about their living spaces. But humans knew something the Dragonkin had forgotten in their technological ascension. Sometimes the simplest problems had the simplest causes. Tom set down his cleaning supplies and dropped to his knees. Ignoring the protests of his aging joints, he lowered himself to the floor and peered beneath the cot. His eyes took a moment to adjust to the shadows. When they did, he understood. Mold. Black mold spreading in thick patches across the underside of the cot's platform. The palace's ventilation system, so efficient at maintaining temperature and humidity in the visible spaces, had created a perfect breeding ground in this forgotten cavity. The spores were likely being inhaled by Alira with every breath, her superior Drekthari respiratory system unable to process the alien biology of Earth-derived fungi that had likely hitchhiked to Vareth Prime on the clothes or equipment of human servants decades ago. Tom pulled himself out from under the cot and stood. His heart hammered. Speaking to a member of the imperial family without permission carried severe penalties. But watching someone die when he could help carried a penalty his conscience wouldn't allow. "Your Highness," he said softly. Alira's eyes opened slightly. They were still bright amber, even if the rest of her had faded. "Servant," she whispered. "You should not speak. I know it's making you sick," Tom said quickly. "Under your cot, it's mold of fungal growth. We have to move you, now." Mold? The word was alien to her. "Please, trust me." Tom moved to the chamber doors and called for the guards. Within moments, the room filled with armored Drake-Theory warriors, their plasma rifles trained on the presumptuous human. "He assaults the princes," one guard shouted. "No!" Illyra's voice, though weak, carried the authority of her bloodline. "Listen to him. What followed was a chaos of conflicting orders, summoned physicians, and incredulous nobles. But when Keshrak himself descended to the floor and looked beneath the cot, his professional composure cracked. Within an hour, Illyra had been moved to new quarters, and human environmental specialists, previously dismissed as unnecessary, were conducting a full audit of the palace. Within 3 days, Illyra's scales began to regain their luster. Within a week, she was walking. Within 2 weeks, she was flying again, her wings cutting through the crimson clouds with renewed vigor. The Emperor summoned Tom to the throne room. The human stood before the massive dragonkin sovereign, expecting execution for his audacity. Instead, Emperor Vexter descended from his throne and lowered his great head until his eyes were level with Tom's. "You saw what our greatest minds missed," the Emperor rumbled. "You knew what our technology could not reveal." "How?" Tom swallowed. "Your Majesty, sometimes being advanced means you forget the simple things. My people... We've lived with mold and fungus and damp basements for thousands of years. We know how to spot it, how it smells, how it hides. It's not sophisticated. It's just experience." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Then, to the shock of every noble in attendance, he laughed a sound like rolling thunder. "Humanity's gift is not their technology or their strength. It is their intimate knowledge of life's small indignities." He straightened to his full height. "Tom of Earth, you are hereby appointed to the Imperial household as Chief of Environmental Health. Your people will no longer scrub our floors. They will teach us what we have forgotten." As Tom left the throne room, he passed Princess Illyra in the corridor. She inclined her head, a gesture of respect between equals. "Thank you," she said simply. "For looking where no one else thought to look." Tom smiled. "Sometimes the biggest problems hide in the smallest spaces, Your Highness." It was a lesson the Dragonkin would not forget. And across the Empire, humanity's status began to change, not because they had conquered through strength, but because they had taught their conquerors that even the mighty could learn from the humble. Sometimes being human was exactly what the universe needed.